Okay, I'm gonna start this off with a question. What is the defining element of Super Monkey Ball? Think about all the elements that made those early games special. Take your time. I'm sure there were a lot of answers to that question. Hey, wait a second. Didn't we already discuss this last time? In respect to Classic Sonic? Yeah, we did. But I think Monkey Ball has a little more to it than short 3D Classic Sonic levels. I still stand by the idea that it's more of a true successor to the Classic Sonics than any 3D Sonic title, but I don't mean to downplay everything original the Monkey Ball series accomplished in those games. So today, we're going to take a deep dive into the games that got the not-so-proverbial ball rolling. Super Monkey Ball 1 and 2. Oh, and by the way, while this is mostly about SMB 1 and 2, I'll occasionally mention Monkey Ball Arcade and Deluxe whenever relevant. Anyways, let's get going with Part 1, Graphics and User Interface. This might seem like an odd point these days, but back when these games came out it was pretty important. The GameCube was packing some impressive hardware for its day, and Super Monkey Ball was one of the system's best showcases in terms of graphical prowess. The arcade game wasn't seen by many outside of Japan, but man, I can only imagine just how big the graphical jump was for people who played Monkey Ball and afterward played Super. The improvement in lighting, reflections, and model quality is staggering. It even still looks good to this day when upscaling to HD and Dolphin, even if forcing widescreen removes all the nice reflections. And speaking of widescreen, Super Monkey Ball 2. In spite of being a 2002 GameCube title, AV added this super forward-thinking feature that continues to serve the game extremely well even 18 years later. But that's not all. Monkey Ball also took it up a notch with the backgrounds. SMB1 added some cool background details to the level themes, and even offered the possibility to perform some absolutely insane tricks by actually using them in the level. As amazing as these tricks are, SMB2's backgrounds are filled with way more detail, even if you can't interact with them. SMB2 was also comparatively light on the reflection textures, but I think it was worth it for these improved level themes. But graphics are one thing, and UI is another, and I'd say this one is pretty much a tie. Sure, Monkey Ball 2 improved the look and style of the banana, life, and score counters, but the timer was just way more bland. The time bomb aesthetic for Monkey Ball 1 was a way better choice. It drives the point across in your mind immediately. And I think Arcade almost nailed it in this case. Almost. Just flip around the fuse to make it line up with a clock face and make the time bomb a Monkey Ball that pops when the timer hits 0. That'd be perfect. Too bad the later Monkey Ball games decided not to do that. Instead they just kinda copied 2. So as far as graphics goes, I'd have to say that Monkey Ball 2 ever so slightly edges out Monkey Ball 1. But that's just the looks. What about those levels? That's the real meat of the games, right? Which one has the better stages? Okay, we're gonna have to compartmentalize that question, so get comfy.
Beginner.
The beginner stages of Super Monkey Ball are about as simple as you can get. Stage 1 is literally just a small rectangle you can't fall off of, and Stage 3 and 4 are similarly very simple and short. Stage 2 offers a pretty great tutorial on how bonus goals work, but that's about it for the first core. After that comes a bonus stage, which we'll talk about at the end, so we'll just move on to Core 2, where things get a bit more interesting. If you're particularly daring, this stage offers some absolutely insane shortcuts, but even if you don't go for that, you can still experiment with other tricks here. The stages immediately after it don't offer much in this regard, but it ends on a perfect obstacle course that challenges your dexterity before sending you to the extra stages, but only if you never lost a life. Those extra stages are pretty solid too, even if there's only 3 of them. Kinda weird to see the AV logo this early on, but hey, it makes for a fun ending stage. Most Monkey Ball 2 players probably started with the story mode, but for the sake of comparison, we'll just refer to SMB2's challenge modes. Right off the bat, SMB2 nailed it with its first couple levels. Stage 1 is just a perfect extension of the original's first stage. Then you have a stage to utilize the new starting gates to build up speed. It's not required, but it's a super satisfying trick once you get it. Stage 3 offers a similar use for the technique for gathering the bananas, and Stage 4 bizarrely offers the game's first bonus goal. I think this was a poor utilization since it skips the bonus stage and nothing else, but at least it's there. It's also a pain to actually reach that goal for someone new to Monkey Ball, which I think can form an unwanted connection in the new player's mind. Regardless, we then end up in Core 2, which comes out to some more creative and ambitious stages. Floaters is an odd one with very little you have to actually interact with, but from there we get slopes and sliders, 2 stages that really test your ability to keep momentum if you want to complete it as fast as possible. Spinning Top and Curve Bridge are both somewhat underwhelming by comparison, but the latter can test your ability to reach the first cycle if you can manage to get the corners just right. From there you get another 10 stages as extras for completing beginner without continues, and these are even more experimental in nature. Alternative especially showcases an absolutely insane speedrunning trick, but otherwise these stages largely commit to their gimmick and do it well. I especially like Junction, Folders, and Linear Seesaws for their out-of-the-box options and great momentum challenges. Overall a very solid bunch of levels here as well, but definitely more ambitious than SMB1's offerings, for better or for worse. In all honesty, I think SMB1 has the better beginning stages, but has a harsher skill floor for accessing only 3 additional levels. But that's just the first 10 from both games. Let's move on to the beefier challenge modes. Don't worry, we'll be going into broader elements from here on, otherwise we'd be here all day.
Advanced.
It's worth noting that SMB1's first stage of each mode is basically a formality. At best, it's supposed to represent the shift in difficulty for each mode, but even that's probably just reading too much into it. I bring this up because Advanced starts to show Monkey Ball 1's reincorporation of stage ideas. For example, Beginner Floor 2 and Advanced Floor 6 are almost identical, but with some changes that increase the difficulty of the map. There's a lot of this between Advanced and Expert, but it exists between Beginner and Advanced as well. Advanced also shows Monkey Ball 1's generous bonus goal system. In Beginner, green goals let you skip 3 stages, which is nerfed to 2 stages in Advanced and 1 stage in Expert. But red goals let you skip 6 whole stages in Advanced. That's nerfed to 3 in Expert, but that's still a lot. In Monkey Ball 2, the green and red goal system is capped to the same as SMB1 Expert at all times. That might seem like it'd be more difficult, but having the option to buy lives pretty much ends the issue of not clearing any of these tougher difficulty settings after long enough. Anyways, SMB1 Advanced is at times brutal, but mostly offers a solid moderate challenge throughout all of its 30 floors. Floor 11 is one of my favorites for its stage aesthetic and incredibly difficult green goal, but others like Floor 25 are also pretty great obstacle course type setups. There's also Floor 18's surprisingly easy red goal if you utilize the minimap, and 17's difficult but satisfying skip if you can nail it. Then we get to the extra stages after not dying a single time across at least 17 stages. Definitely a challenge, but after practicing the tougher skips in stage 30, it's not too bad. Unfortunately, the extra stages are super underwhelming here. Not only are there only 5, but 3 of them are just the beginner extra stages. One has been changed slightly, but the other 2 have not been changed whatsoever. I'm sorry, but that's lame. There's just no other way to describe it. Why would you make getting to the extra stages this difficult if you're going to unabashedly rehash them like this? I really don't get that decision, and it really cheapens the idea of the extra stages. Oh, and spoiler warning, this problem doesn't stop at Advanced. But to be fair, the new extra stages are well done, even if there really should be more of them. But how does SMB2 fare? For the most part, better. This is where Monkey Ball 2 really starts to emphasize speed in some of its levels. Coaster and Gravity Slider are here and are highlights of the run. Overall, this entire mode is extremely solid. To be honest, there's only a couple parts that you can pinpoint as outright bad. It's arthropod. Okay, story time. I'm 7 years old and finally get to the last level of Advanced mode. I didn't know you could buy lives in the game, since it doesn't tell you unless you go to the options, but it's still been a great run. I've got 3 lives and I'm raring to see the extra stages. But oh arthropod, you merciless monster you. It took me 10 years before I finally made it through Advanced without using any additional lives. 10 years this stage has haunted me, and to this day I can't consistently beat it. It is easily in my top 3 hardest Monkey Ball stages, and in case you couldn't gather from what I've said so far, I'm not a big fan of this one. Okay, but putting aside my vendetta with this stage, are there any other issues with Advanced? Well, there's one other big issue, but most players probably won't notice. The stage launchers has an extremely difficult green goal, and guess what your reward is for actually managing to pull it off? Missing out on a fairly manageable, easy by comparison red goal waiting for you in the stage after launchers. So yeah, that's a bit of a problem. But hey, at least you can lose a life in this mode and still see the extras. That was a good development choice that would have suited SMB1 well. As for those extra levels, yeah, they're pretty great overall. There are some weird ones like Teapot, which still I don't entirely get, but overall these levels are really good stages. Which just makes me hate Arthropod more. This leaves us with only one main game mode left.
But what about...
Shut up, I'm doing a thing.
Expert.
Okay, so this is where SMB1 really ramps up the difficulty to a pretty extreme degree by the end. It starts out pretty easy though, even offering, depending on who you ask, the easiest red goal in the series. But that false sense of security falls apart real quick. By floor 7, you start getting an idea of what's ahead of you, and it's a lot of checkered floor. Side note, I have to guess that Sega just cut or lost Checkered Floor Guy from the design team while working on 2, because I don't think there's a single stage in 2 that uses them except for this one. But they're all over the place in the first game's expert mode, so what happened? Floors 7, 13, 27, 31 arguably, and most notably 42 all use checkered floor obstacles almost exclusively. And in fairness, it's actually a pretty fun obstacle idea that 2 could have explored further. I'm not really sure why it didn't. Anyways, that's not all SMB1 Expert has going for it. Highlights of the run are definitely floors 9, 22, 25, 32, 42, and 50. Each of those is pretty memorable even if they aren't named. Surprisingly, it's not extremely brutal once you understand the level design, but it only takes a couple of major nuisances to ruin a perfectly good run. It's worth noting that SMB2 gives you the option to buy lives, but SMB1 doesn't. Overall, I don't see a problem with using a 99 lives code in SMB1 to achieve the same effect, considering the developers implicitly admitted that it was a problem in the first game by adding the feature in the second one. Expert lowers the entry bar for getting to the extra stages too. Now, as long as you don't use a continue, you're granted access to the Expert extras. This eases the blow of recycled levels a little bit, but not by much. The game also doesn't tell you this difference, so it's a distinct possibility that players will reset the runs after dying only once, only to be greeted by this screen once they finally made it. Not fun, I'm sure. This time around you get 7 original stages, with each of the beginner stages returning to round out the total to 10. Most of these are pretty fun, and offer some unique spins impressively late into the game. They're not super challenging besides Expert Extra 9, but they're still a great reward for completing the mode. At last, we reach SMB2 Expert, which upon reflection is way harder than SMB1's Expert. Right off the bat, 2's Expert doesn't pull any punches. The new obstacle of portals is immediately paired with long tightrope blocks in just the first stage. From there, you get one of my favorites, Freefall. This one really challenges your ability to control your fall trajectory, and trust me, if you want those bonus goals, you better be good at controlling your falls. Mad Shuffle is a pain if you don't know the right time to set off, but can be pretty satisfying if you can manage to do it without hitting the lower speed switch. And Jump Machine has one of my favorite red goals, even if the camera can be kind of a pain sometimes. Tier showcases the hardest goal in the game. To this day, I still can't complete the red goal on this stage. It's absolutely brutal, and almost feels as if the GameCube analog stick isn't quite precise enough to pull it off. And Bracelets is still one of my favorite stages in the entire series for its brilliant feeling of earned speed. All of these are amazing, and to be honest, I think each of these stages having names is really helpful in defining/differentiating them. Plus, not having any clone stages really helps define each of these levels even more. The idea of reincorporation was a cool idea on one's part, but having every stage be unique really does make Monkey Ball 2 stand out more. The extra stages this time around are also pretty interesting. Free Throw is a fun idea that really pushes one's falling skills to the limit, but the others range from just pretty off the wall to outright annoying. Train Worm especially comes to mind for the latter. But Monkey Ball does not stop there. If you manage to complete Expert Extra in both games without using a continue, Monkey Ball grants you access to the hardest stages it has to offer.
Master!
In Monkey Ball Arcade, Master was just a small bonus for completing the rest of the game. It was still technically part of Expert, being deemed the Master level. It was a stage pretty deserving of that title, but when it came to porting the game, 9 brand new stages were added to create an entirely new hidden mode. It's worth noting that SMB2 was already in development while they were porting 1 to the GameCube, and you can kinda see the shift in the way levels were constructed in the Master stages. These stages feel way more in line with SMB2's levels, outside of 9, which has been unchanged from the arcade game. Some of these stages are pretty manageable, notably Master 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, and 10, but the others are some of the most brutal stages in the entire franchise. For my money, there is no stage more difficult than Master 3. To this day, I can't complete it using the intended method. The only remotely viable strategy was to pull the super precise fall maneuver. Yeah, This was actually easier to do than just beating the stage normally. It's that difficult. Master 8 and 5 can also feel extremely luck-based, but there are some semi-reliable strategies for them. And of course, there's Master 9, the original final level, and the swan song of the old philosophy of level design. In spite of its simplicity, it's still one of my favorites, and easily one of the hardest. Can't say I've beaten this mode without an infinite lives code or save stage though. You've gotta be incredibly dedicated to get that good. As for Monkey Ball 2's master stages, they're really well made, but it's missing something really integral. They don't look distinct. Giving the master stages their own aesthetic was a great choice on SMB1's part, because just giving the master stages the same look as the other extra stages just takes away some of the charm of them. Fortunately, these stages hold up even better than the old master levels design-wise, at least in my opinion. Centrifugal has a great gimmick, Double Twin is a cool concept, Swing Bridges is a great expansion on Junction from the beginner extras, and Passage is one of my top 5 levels in the series. Intermittent kinda sucks due to some finicky hit detection on those tiny ramps, and Spasmodic is pretty close to being totally luck-based. But you also have Clock Phase, which is a really cool expansion on Advanced Extra 5 from SMB1. But SMP2 doesn't stop there. It also offers a pretty great gambit of Master Extra stages too, even if Striker has possibly the easiest red goal in the game for some reason. 8 Seesaws is a very rare case of stage reincorporation in SMB2 to great effect. Synchronized and Dizzy System are kinda lame, but the last stages are brilliant. I can't think of a better way to wrap up the game, even if the camera kinda sucks here at points. Overall, a pretty solid turnout for the master stages, even if they aren't very distinct in the looks department. That leaves us with only one set of levels left to compare, the bonus stages. Just by looking at the SMB1 and SMB2 stages side by side, you can see a difference in how they work. The first 4 out of all 5 SMB1 bonus stages are clearly made for one to pretty easily collect every banana on the platform. That's why all but the last one don't even have goalposts. Monkey Ball 2 sets a precedent right away by having the goalpost in every single bonus stage, even if it's somewhat unnecessary since losing one of these stages just sends you to the next level, with no hit to the life count, but the point is still made. You're mostly not meant to get every banana in the SMB2 bonus stages. It takes a lot of practice to even get most of the bananas in these stages, and in some of them, there's no possible way to get every banana. Maybe it's just me, but in a stage where the only purpose is to collect the bananas, you should have the ability to get all of the bananas, right? I love the concept of some of these stages, especially fighters, but the way they're built makes them cool on concept alone. They're just not very fun to play. The only ones I like are the first 3, and that's because it's actually possible to perfect them. Also, wow, SMB1 wins in the looks department of these stages by a country mile. Not even a contest there as far as I'm concerned. So to actually answer the question of which one has the better stages, we'll segment it into each mode. Beginner mode was better handled in SMB1 overall. It's just a better introduction to how these stages work. Advanced mode was a bit of a tie, but having additional lives and a less strict entry into the extras gives SMB2 the edge. Expert mode was a bit less ambitious in SMB1, and yet is still too brutal without the use of exterior tools. SMB2 definitely gets the point here. Master mode is great in both, and SMB1's are more iconic, but SMB2 just had the better level design, so I'll give it the point. Extra stages were handled way better in SMB2, but SMB1 has way better bonus stages, so it's kind of a wash between them. Okay, we've gone at length about graphics and UI in the main game, but there's one other huge part of these games we haven't talked about yet. Party games and multiplayer. And I'm gonna be honest, most of these don't hold up as well as I remember. SMB1 only has 6 extra games split into 2 groups, party games and mini games. There's really not any particular criteria for what and where, they're all multiplayer, so Monkey Ball 2 just combined it all together into the party games category. Normally I would go through each of these individually, but each of these is pretty cut and dry better in Monkey Ball 2. The Monkey Race 2 tracks are better, Monkey Fight 2 has cooler modes, and Monkey Target 2 has everything the first one does besides the Wheel of Danger.
Which sucks.
Monkey Billiards 2 is identical to 1 besides looking better, Monkey Bowling is pretty much the same story, and Monkey Golf is equally not fun in both. SMB2 also has 6 modes entirely exclusive to it. Most of them are incredibly simple distractions, but a few of them are pretty enjoyable after multiple plays. Monkey Soccer has its fans, and I'll always have a soft spot for Monkey Shot, but at the end of the day, these are all just extras. There's not much meat to them. As for main game multiplayer, SMB1 has the ace in the hole that is competition mode. I have no idea why this wasn't included in SMB2, but I do know that it was a huge mistake not to offer it. Normal challenge multiplayer is fun and all, but competition mode is definitely better as a multiplayer experience. Not really sure how this one works though. Like, does everybody control the stage apportioned amount, or do they all just move independently from the stage and it just looks like you're tilting it?
Sound off in the comments if you know.
It's also worth noting that Monkey Ball Deluxe actually had a competition mode for all its stages, technically making it the definitive release as far as multiplayer goes. But unfortunately, the Deluxe mod for GameCube couldn't add that back in, so unless you're willing to just use the Xbox version, you're out of luck. And don't use the PS2 version. That is still not an option. Don't even think about it. And so we arrive at the last point of discussion, the music and sound design. Both Monkey Ball games are very guilty of not knowing when to quit as far as the voices go. Depending on these stages, these monkeys will just not shut up. They won't stop whining like, oh, I'm gonna fall off the stage. Yes, I know that. It's almost like you're on a really tiny platform, and there's nothing I can do about it because even being perfectly centered is gonna cause you to... Look, it's annoying. Besides that, the sound design is actually pretty well handled, which just kind of makes it feel even worse. At least all of the bumps and different crashes do feel very weighty and help to add to the feel of the controls. As for the music, I'm kind of mixed overall. For my money, Monkey Ball Arcade's frenetic electro-jazz score will always be my favorite. But the more techno score of Super certainly has its moments. Storm works great at building tension through its industrial rock vibe, Monkey Ball was fittingly flashy and ambient, and Underwater sounds like music from the CDI Zeldas for some reason.
Gonna play it again. And get it. You must die. I love how he greets you.
He's kind of cool looking.
Hello.
Hey.
You must die.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Yeah.
You must die.
Will you be staying for dinner? You must die.
Don't know why that's the case, but there you go. Monkey Ball 2 went in a far more ambient direction with its music. The percussion of Jungle Island dominates the piece rather than the bassline and flashy synth of the predecessor, and the reverb of Under the Ocean really sells the feel. Most stages just try to sell the ambience though. As for bonus music, it's just pretty generic in both. It does the job, but Arcade's the clear winner in that department if nothing else. As for the party games, Monkey Fight sounds like a track right out of Splatoon, and Monkey Bowling's Disco is surprisingly fitting. Otherwise, they're all just kind of serviceable for the game that they're connected to. SMB2 fares better in this regard. Pretty much every party game from the original was replaced with one that's more fitting. Most of the new stuff is pretty solid too, but the clear center of attention is Monkey Race 2 Advanced. Still probably the best track from all three scores. You've made it through 4,120 odd words of Monkey Ball discussion. We've weighed every element, and it's time to finally determine which game is better.
Beginner, Advanced, Expert, Master. Party game, competition mode.
I guess that decides it then. Man, I didn't even talk about story mode. But I guess I didn't need to. These games are extremely close in quality, and both are still absolute must for any GameCube collection. But I still think that Super Monkey Ball 2 just slightly edges out the original in both polish and quality. I'll also mention that all the SMB1 stages, minus the extras and Master, are playable in Deluxe's story mode, but they've all been reskinned to SMB2 world designs. Just thought I'd mention the option. Deluxe also has every stage from SMB1 in its challenge mode. They're in widescreen, and even have the other quality of life improvements from SMB2 at their disposal. But even in challenge mode, some of the level themes have been changed. Some of these are okay, but some completely ruin the aesthetic of the original. Still, it can be argued as the better way to experience these stages for a newcomer. So, now what? I talked last episode about what the best ways are to play these games, but I mentioned something else there too. There's also a mod for Super Monkey Ball that tries to put the arcade assets back into the GameCube version. I wonder... I guess we're not done with the classics just yet. Next time, we'll look at SMB2 Romhacks. But until then, this is TheGamingSiri, signing out.
Get up, and nothing gets me down. You got it tough. I've seen the toughest around, and I know, baby, just how you feel. You got to roll with the punches and get to what's real. Can't you see me standing here? I got my back against the record machine. I ain't the worst that you've seen. Can't you see what I mean? Oh, might as well jump, jump. Might as well jump. Go ahead and jump, jump. Go ahead and jump. Oh, hey you, who said that? Baby, how you been? You say you don't know, you won't know until you begin. So can't you see me standing here? I got my back against the record machine. I ain't the worst that you've seen. Can't you see what I mean? Oh, might as well jump, jump. Might as well jump. Go ahead and jump, jump. Go ahead and jump. Might as well jump.